Welcome to the Melinda Eitzen Show. I'm Melinda. We are so fortunate today to have with us Brigitte Kimichek, and she was a lawyer. She's retired, but more important to our conversation today, she's an author, and she's really driven by a cause to help working women to not be discriminated against and to help with gender equality. Welcome, Brigitte.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. So you wrote a book, and then you wrote a second book.
Yep, part of a series.
Play Nice, Play Smart. It sounds fun, but it's really not necessarily in a fun space. So tell us, what are the books about?
All right, so I'll start with Play Nice,
Yes.
which was published in 2019. And although it's been a few years, it's actually extraordinarily relevant, even still today. So it actually just received a literary award just a couple of weeks ago.
Congratulations.
So we're very excited about that. I had a partner in crime. Her name is J.R. Tomlinson. She's in the industrial real estate space, and I was a commercial real estate finance lawyer, so both very male-dominated environments. So we had, over the years, she was a client, that's how I got to know her, and over the years we talked, 100,000 times about all the things that were happening in our respective environments, and decided one day when one of us retires, we were going to write a book about all the things that we could contribute to help women and really men understand what women go through. And that's how Play Nice came about. So
and that's kind of in the sexual harassment space, true?
yes. So the reason why is because we were actually going to start with Play Smart, the concept of the A to Z's of how to be better or the best professional you can be when you work with men, because there are a lot of dynamics to working with men that are incredibly important and valuable. So it's not the We Hate Men in any of these two books. It's all about how do we share a workspace? How can we make it more profitable and healthier for a better working environment for all? And there's a lot of research out there that says women are extremely valuable in higher ranking positions as well as men, and working together makes the company much more profitable. So there's a lot of research out there, and we just wanted to be comprehensive. So we tried to think of everything we could think of. That was the idea. And then the Me Too movement hit. So that was, and while we were starting to write the book. And so we decided, okay, let's take that one chapter on inappropriate behavior in the workplace and write Play Nice. So Play Nice really goes through everything you can think of that relates to inappropriate conduct. What is inappropriate conduct? How do you identify it? How do you react to it? And how can the environment, your workforce, the men in particular, and HR, if you're lucky to have one, help you work through those issues? And what we decided, what worked for us really, is you don't want to have to run to HR every single time there's a problem. That's just unrealistic. And it's not healthy either, because then you're hiding and you're worried about what everybody's saying, and is it going to get out because it's supposed to be confidential, and what is it going to do to my career? And as we all saw in 2017 through even today, if you run to HR and that person who's the violator happens to be very valuable to the company, you may lose your job, because guess what? They're going to move you to a different section, maybe or a different division where you might not want to be. And the violator may or may not learn from his mistakes. And the violators can be women too, by the way. Then all of a sudden, you've lost some of your career aspirations, and it can be so intolerable when the violator is popular and very valuable to the company in terms of financial contributions, and you're forced to leave, and that's not fair.
No, and you really show the passion you have in the book. I mean, it really comes through, of advocating and helping women. The goal of this is to help women and men and companies, but helping women understand, hey, if HR isn't effective or the right path, or they don't even exist, what can you do live in the moment to deal with the situation?
Right. And how can you reach out to those around you, maybe a superior who you trust, and it can be a man or a woman, to help you deal with the violator before you maybe even have to talk to that person. Have the more senior person talk to them and
Yes.
and explain that this is not proper, and But ideally, you should do it yourself. I mean, if you can, and if you trust yourself, and if you do it once, you can do it again.
And we're not talking here about rape, right? That's criminal. You're not talking about criminal behavior. They should call the police.
Exactly.
You're talking about less than criminal harassing.
Right.
Unacceptable, harassing, shouldn't have to put up with it.
Right. And it's not just, play nice is not just about harassment per se. It's also about unconscious bias and discriminatory behavior. You know, I'm looking to be on this big project, and I'm asking you as my superior, will you please dial me in? I'd love to be part of this. And they tell you, well, you know, you have children at home. I don't think this is good for you. Or you're pregnant. I'm not going to put you on I'm not going to have you fly around the country and expose you to, you know, potential dangers, whatever they may be. Well, that's not fair to her.
Right.
You know, there was a very recent situation where a young woman, extraordinarily bright, is interviewing for a change within the company to a different division, and the superior she's going to work for, who's not much older than her, I would say maybe 10 years older than her, says to her, well, you can't work on our team. You're far too attractive, and our wives would not appreciate it.
Oh my gosh.
So what does she do? So she has to learn to advocate for herself. And in the moment, she shouldn't, well, my advice is don't just leave and be upset and decide, okay, it's not for me, or go complain to HR, because that's discrimination. Now, I threw this example out to a bunch of male friends, which I do all the time, and they were, well, she can't have it both ways. She can't be protected from sexual harassment or discrimination and then expect to be put in the midst of it all. That doesn't work. So my advice is, and what we all agreed on, it's okay for her to say, okay, let's take a step back here. I worked really hard for this position. I have a great background, and here are all the add values that I think that I bring to the table. And I really want to work with you, and I can get to know your wives so that they're not worried about me. They have nothing to worry about. You have nothing to worry about. And if there are any men in this group that I'd be traveling with, it'd be very important, if they think they have something to worry about, for them to be educated on what is proper and what is inappropriate behavior. So can we work together on this? Because I think you would benefit from my presence. You know, so you have to learn to put the issue to bed right away, right when it happens. If someone says something that's inappropriate, whether you're pregnant or you have children at home, or you're too pretty, or maybe you're not the right fit for whatever reason because you're an Asian American, or, you know, whatever you are, you need to say, hold on, here's how I can help you, and I want to help you. And I think the company would agree, since they hired me, this is why I'm here.
That's great. I mean, I would never have all that ready to say, right? So what's great about your book is helping people think about it before it happens.
Right.
So that they are on the ready of, hey, I've got a response for this. And to just have the idea that you might need to have a response for something like that.
Right. And here's the other aspect to it. If you're in an environment where something like that is happening to another person, that's great training ground for you. Don't be a bystander. Speak up and say, okay, wait a minute, because it's easier to deal with someone else's issue
it is
than if
so
it happens
much
to yourself. But again, once you do that, and once you say, hold on, Peter, I don't think that was a really good thing to say here. Let's talk about it. This is her perspective. This is why she's here. She shouldn't be discriminated against, and what you just told her is discriminatory. And then, of course, you're going to get, I didn't mean it, I was just being funny, or really, I didn't realize that. They're going to realize that they're doing things that may be inappropriate, and they will actually appreciate it if they get called out on it in a gentle, often with humor, which I highly recommend. Don't be difficult, don't be a bitch. It's just not necessary. It doesn't get you anywhere in the long run, and you'll become unpopular and potentially even an enemy to whoever that violator might be, because there's a wide range of violators. You've got the goofy guys who think they're being funny when they comment on someone who's at the water cooler or walking by, and then you have someone who's very jealous and and maybe not secure in their role at the company, and they see you as a threat, so they're going to do anything possible to make you look bad. These can be women and men alike. Or you have a predator who will tell someone who is looking for a job or is looking for a promotion, you'll get that job or you'll get that promotion if you do these things for me that are inappropriate.
Yes.
So there's a wide range, and you have to decide who you are and who you want to be and where you want to be in your career, and speak up. But do it in a way that you're not going to put them on the offensive to where they're going to try to ruin your career, because that's
Right.
not going to be helpful.
And that's why people were quiet for so long, right? Is they didn't want to be famous in the company for that. Oh, she's the one who, tattles on people. Or they didn't want their whole defining career to be about whistleblowing, so to speak. So I think that's why so many people just let it slide. And what you're proposing is much more constructive and instructive, educating the people that, hey, what you're saying or doing is not appropriate. But I love the idea of advocating for someone else when you see it happening. That's great advice.
And it's all over the news right now. Just think about Diddy Combs. Think about all these people who were right there with him when all of this bad behavior was happening. And they're going to get called out in all the wrong ways. And all they really had to do at some point is call him out for his behavior and say, what are you doing? You're going to go to jail, right?
Yeah.
And he was doing, this is what's so crazy. There are these people out there everywhere, right here in Dallas, Texas, all over the country, who are doing things just like him. And they were doing them back when the Me Too movement hit, which you think, okay, maybe I should learn from this. Maybe I should stop my behavior. Maybe I should change how I deal with women, or ask the people that work for me to go find me somebody, or whatever it is. They didn't learn anything. They're so entitled. They think they can get away with it. And look where we are today. It's still happening.
One piece of advice you gave in the book that I thought was so smart, and this is really developed since I've been practicing law, is when you're in the process of looking for a job, there's some great online forums to check out these companies. That some companies have a culture problem,
Right.
and that's going to be out there somewhere on the internet. That's brilliant. I mean, that was not true. I've been practicing
Right.
31 years. There wasn't the same availability online to easily be like, hey, what are other people saying about this?
And I actually learned that from a lot of the younger people. That's one of
Yes.
the first things they do. And of course, it's a roller coaster ride, right? Sometimes jobs are available, sometimes jobs are not so available. So when they're plentiful, then they're doing their research, and they want to be sure they end up with a company that has state of the art, has all the right phones, has all the right vacation time. And like my daughter, for example, worked for a company that had no limits on vacation times.
Oh, that's a
it's
new
a whole
trend.
new thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So all these things are changing constantly. So you have to keep up with what's going on. But yeah, so when you read Play Smart, which is the second book, I tried to think of everything that was relevant, and just based on my discussions with the younger generations, what is important to them. But what I've noticed is it doesn't matter that all these years have gone by. Not a whole lot has changed when it comes to the sort of the subtle gender discrimination and the differences between how men and women are perceived when they're in a work environment. I might recommend this male to the client because I just don't think the female is going to be strong enough, which is just so not right anymore. And that's why it's important for women, because the grass isn't always greener at a different company, to learn how to speak up for themselves and to seek the mentors and the sponsors, especially sponsors, to help you behind closed doors. Oh, she is very relevant. She is up to speed in this area of whatever the company's work might be that she was hired for, maybe, and that she's doing a great job, and you should really consider her as the person to lead the deal.
What's the difference in your speech between a sponsor and a mentor?
So a mentor can be anybody within the company or outside of your company. Could be an uncle, could be a friend, could be your dad's golfing buddy, could be your mom's, best friend from high school. It could be anybody. Ideally, you want to find somebody within the company that knows the company that can help you with any political dynamics, where you are in your career, how you can enhance your skills, what looks good, what doesn't look good, which people to work with, how to think outside the box and what actions you can take to be visible when you think outside the box, that sort of thing. A sponsor is somebody different. If you've worked with someone and they really like what you did, that's a good sponsor possibility because they're likely more senior. If they have any clout or if they have a good reputation, people will listen to them and they will speak on your behalf behind closed doors. So that's very valuable. They'll be the one to say, okay, we've got these 3 candidates, but I really want her to lead this deal. Let's see how she can do or what she does.
I was at a marketing event with all women, and one of the women there was a headhunter, but at high level, like she was placing people in corporate America high level. And I said, so are women finally making the same as men? Same amount of money. And she said, oh no. She said, I just placed 2 people. They had the exact same credential, meaning education, quality of work history. And she placed them both. And the man is making $100,000 more than the woman in this job. And I just said, why? What is happening? And she said, this is her theory, is that men are much better than women at advocating for their salary from the beginning. Like the very first stage of employment, they're advocating, and along they're advocating. But it may just be that we still don't have gender equality, that people do not think women deserve the same amount of money, that they think women don't need the money, right? Oh, they have a husband, their husband's making money, they don't really need the money. But I thought about it as an employer, because I've been an employer for 24 years. I agree with that assessment. We employ men and women. I think the men, and this is a very small sample, but I think the men we've employed have been a better advocate for themselves.
Oh, there's no question about it. And that's because it's likely something they learn from the get-go, and women kind of don't learn how to do that. But there's no excuse for not knowing how to do that today. I think there's no question women are paid less for the same job functions, typically. So as a female, you really need to dig deep and understand what is the company paying somebody similarly situated, right? What are the guys getting paid? And why am I not getting treated equally? And it could be your skill set. It could be you haven't worked there long enough. It could be nobody knows who you are. You're not visible. You're not speaking up for yourself. You're not sharing your skill set with those that you need to be sharing with. You're not working on high-profile transactions. So do the research, figure out where you should be, figure out why maybe you're not on an equal level, and then make some changes. Speak up for yourself. And if you are equal parity with that other person, then you need to gently complain about it and say, I hear this person gets paid more than me, and that might be his skill set, but here's mine, and here's where I'm outperforming him, and where I have been outperforming him, why I should be paying at least as much, if not more, and I'm going to argue for more.
And we hate it, but people do talk about their salary amongst themselves.
Yes, that's true. And
we wish they didn't.
Now, the good thing is, around the country, there is a change for transparency. So there are a number of states now that require employers to be transparent about the position and how much the position pays and what they're paying other people who are in that position.
Oh, how
So you have to
interesting.
explain, okay, this person gets more money because they've been here for 10 years. You're just coming in the door.
Right.
But still, that person may be stagnant. That person may be no longer qualified the way the way you might be coming in the door. So be intelligent about what you want and where you are and how you compare and how you add value. And don't necessarily worry about whether that person's adding value. Explain why it is you're adding value and how you have performed to the best of your abilities and are outperforming this other person.
That's a more positive approach.
Yes, very positive approach. You're not bitching, you're not crying, you're not whining, because they all hate that. You are speaking you're advocating for yourself. And my mom used to say, I love my mother, she was great, and she used to say, nobody can read your mind. Okay, no, you know what you want for Christmas or for your birthday, but the person you want a gift from may not. So speak up. You've got to speak up for yourself.
Yes.
And then have it backed by statistics. You know, what does your market say about how you should be paid for what you're doing? And here's what happens a lot in today's environment. There's so many changes within companies. You're cutting people, the divisions are changing, you're getting moved around. All of a sudden your boss quits and now you have 3 jobs instead of the 1 job. Don't sit there and be miserable. If you've been doing it for 6 months and the company hasn't, or a year, and the company hasn't recognized your contributions, speak up, but be prepared. Have everything written down, all the data and all the things you've been doing and how your job description has changed and why you should be getting paid more. I know people who ended up leaving and then they hire somebody new for double, triple the salary into their position. It's just, what? You've lost a very good employee. And so flip the coin for a minute. If you're the employer, why would you risk losing someone who you've trained, who's actually who may love their job and love the people and love being there, but they're overworked? Why wouldn't you want to keep them? And why wouldn't you want to be proactive? You're going to save a whole lot more money than hiring somebody new who has no knowledge and no experience.
Training's expensive.
Right, training is very expensive. So it's got to be a two-way street. So remember, when you're negotiating, you're helping them.
They have an incentive to
incentive to help you, and you've got to remind them of that. And employers love that because they know you want to be there. That's when you're interviewing for a job. Don't go into a job thinking I want to do X, Y, and Z, not realizing because you didn't do your research that they don't do X and Y. And so you're there asking for something they don't even do.
When we interview people, I say, before I tell you about us, what do you know about us? I want to see that they want to do what we do, and that they know about us, that they want to work for us.
Exactly.
And so they should do the research.
They should absolutely do their research, because we don't, as an employer, and I was a hiring partner at our firm for 3 or 4 years, we don't want people that don't want to be there. There are a lot of other people that want to be there, and so it makes sense to be prepared. And knowledge is power, and it's very, very important. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. You just got to be prepared for what.
The headhunter said that women at each stage of, review, and they just accept what they're given. And men come in, like you said, and say, hey, I need this much money, and this is why I did this, check, brought in this client, check.
Exactly.
And why that would be gender difference, I don't know. But
and especially if you work in an industry where, like a law firm, where you are judged in terms of compensation on what you, as you mature, bring to the table, basically, right?
Yes.
So that's very important. If you're not speaking for yourself, and if you don't have allies who are typically men who can write you a letter of recommendation, so to speak, right? Or just send you a letter with an accolade that says, great job on this deal, you were valuable in these respects, something, or even from clients. I used to get it from clients, because clients would always send us emails. It was a team effort, it was so awesome, blah, blah, blah. And I would write them back, and I said, could you please revise that to include our names? Because we can use that, and I would be honest, we can use that at the end of the year for compensation.
Yes.
And they were always, and then you'd get a big letter back, and she did this, and he did that, and so it was always, if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it.
Right.
So coming back to transparency in your salaries, that's sort of, I wouldn't say sweeping the country, but a lot of states are enacting those. So regardless of where you are, make sure you ask the question, are you transparent in your compensation? And if they say, no, we're not, then be prepared on what market is offering.
Yes, that's super interesting. Okay, so let's talk about Play Smart some more. Tell us, what are some more tips that people would get out of Play Smart?
So the goal for Play Smart, again, is to make you aware, because it's all about self-advocacy, in my opinion.
Yes.
So what are the obstacles when you come into a workplace? And if some of those are concerning to you, like, is there still a glass ceiling, which is a big one? I had a guy pronounce, oh, we're so advanced now, there's no such thing as a glass ceiling anymore. And I was like, what planet are you on? Of course there's a glass ceiling. So we talked about it. And he has 3 daughters, so that was very illuminating for him. But there are big obstacles. One is the glass ceiling that you have to be aware of. So understand, like you mentioned before, do your research, because there are all these Glassdoor is a good one, or there are these websites where people comment on companies they've worked for. You just Google the company, glass ceiling and name the company, or glass ceiling or company name and sexual harassment, or company name and discrimination, or company name recent layoffs. Do that. You'll get a ton of information about what an obstacle might be. So it could be sexual harassment is obviously a big one. Companies have been sued for that. There's diversity. Is there diversity? Okay, now I want to make a distinction between diversity and DEI. I think, obviously, that's the term, but it's very important to have a culture, a diverse culture at the company you're working at, because you'll just get so much more feedback from different nationalities and different perspectives, from women, men, minorities, from gay people, it's just a better collaborative environment in my opinion. Now, if you want to go,
I agree 100%.
Yeah, so I think that's always very important. And to how do they interview? Do they require a picture? That's always very interesting. We at our law firm, we didn't do that. We just said, take the pictures off. We just want to see the resume. And we'd have an initial conversation, and then we would invite them in. Because it gives you, everybody has this unconscious bias. Even if you think you're not discriminatory in any way, everybody is. There's an unconscious bias at some level. So strip all that out of there, and then you can see the individual for what they've accomplished on their resume. And that's always very interesting. When the person comes in, you're like, wow, this wouldn't have expected this person. And sometimes it's great, and then other times you're like, whew, I wonder, we need to dig deeper on the resume. So it just depends. But so that's another obstacle. There's so many more. So you want to be certain that whatever values you have as an employee are being honored by the employer. And that includes health and well-being for a lot of people. It includes having vacation time. It includes what kind of a mentor program do you have going on? Is there allowance for you joining associations and being able to build up your marketing skills if you're in an industry where you have to have marketing skills? All of those are incredibly important to being a good employee. So we walk through all the obstacles, then I walk through all the obstacles, and then how to deal with them. And there's a lot of information out there how to be a good employee, but there's not enough specifically about how to do that. What action do I take? What strategy do I implement? How do I become a better self-advocate for myself? And that's really most of the focus of the book. We dig deep into how to speak up, how to negotiate better, how to deal with difficult personalities, how to get feedback, ask for feedback. And that's true in any industry. And let them know you are sincere. You want the feedback. If there's any negative feedback, how to deal with it, how to fix it, and how to go back and talk to them again that you've done this, you've done that, because they know they care. It's an employer that will see that you really care. If you have difficult personalities, how to raise that with superiors without losing your job and without having to run to HR. How to deal with someone who is not treating you well because they just don't think that you're capable as a female. And I have lots of different stories, not just from me, but from other people who some of the younger generation who are still experiencing those same issues.
Well, one thing that we talked about before we started today is now, because of Me Too, and because there is awareness of, hey, we don't want to sexually harass anyone, in some ways, you have some men who are afraid to work with women at all because they don't want to be accused of something, and they don't want there to be any perception. And then that's a whole different problem, right?
No, it is a different problem. And sometimes it can be paralyzing because you, as a female, if you are outspoken and if you are engaging and if you want to contribute, someone could shoot you down just by saying something really not so nice, and then it's hard to pick yourself up. Hence, strategies on how to take a step back and really think through how you want to deal with that. And my best advice is walk into that person's office, sit down and say, can we please talk? Here are my concerns. Here's where I want to be. You said this to me, which means I'm probably not going to get on any big deals because you think somehow I'm not capable. Can you try me out? Let's put me on a deal and you can see what I can do for you. Or if someone else has worked with you, have that person go talk to them and say, she's really capable and you should consider her, because if you don't, you're discriminating against her, and have a superior explain the impact of his actions, which really doesn't benefit anybody. It causes an unhealthy environment, maybe even a toxic environment. And if that person doesn't change their behavior, it's not good for the company as a whole. And
really, companies are more rich if they have women and men and diversity, like you talked about. So we have to find a way to work together.
Well, and my advice is, and again, I think men, let's talk about the boys club for a second, men are very valuable. And senior women are very valuable and can be very difficult because they have a chip on their shoulder. They had to fight their way to the top, and they're not going to want it to make it easy for any young women coming up the ranks. So you have to learn how to deal with them too. You have to learn how to communicate with them that you're not there to be a threat. You're there because you want to learn and you want to be educated better on how to negotiate, or how to bring a deal in the door, or how to behave in certain situations when you have an angry client or an angry boss. I mean, you want to have a platform of allies that can help you grow, and you want the senior people to remember that they need to bring you along because they're going to retire someday. So you want to be sure that you have someone to take your spot and who's going to continue the growth of the company.
Brigitte, it's so wonderful that you wrote these books and that you're advocating and getting the word out and trying to give people real life, everyday resources. Something to do, a way to advocate. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. And for anyone out there, I'm available to come and talk and speak upon the subject matter. And
that's excellent. We'll put your contact information on the screen.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening. And please join us next time on the Melinda Eitzen Show.